All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick as always, and today we have Vaughn Dalzell on the show. We're going to talk entirely about college football, week 0 coming up. So I'll bring in Vaughn now. Vaughn, Navy, Notre Dame, on the mothership, NBC and Peacock. Notre Dame, just a small 20.5-point favorite. The total is 49.5. Navy a plus 800 on the money line. Do you have any leans on this game?
Yeah, I think this game's going to be pretty interesting. Not as interesting as Drew's background today. They should be playing Notre Dame and Navy, where Drew's located at, in my opinion. Much better weather where Drew's at. But I think Sam Hartman is going to be one of the most exciting things to happen to Notre Dame. Whether or not their offense is going to be able, their offensive coordinator is going to be able to make the play calls necessary to what he's been able to do, 300 plus yards 15 times in the past 2 seasons, something Notre Dame football is not used to. But they get off to quick starts here early in the season. Navy, on the other hand, not so much. 17 total points in the last 3 season openers. I can only look at ways to fade Navy, whether that's on the team total under, maybe a Notre Dame first quarter team total over. I think those are the best angles of attack here. But Navy will pass a little more this year. They said that, but it won't be enough to prepare them for what Sam Hartman's about to do to them. So I do like Notre Dame, but 20.5 is a big number to lay in a season opener.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think the side looks about square here. The total has torn the sharp community apart as people have been emphatically saying this was an over and over and over all summer. And yet yesterday, the under money showed up with aggressiveness, I think is a fair way to put it. This was 50.5 yesterday. I was part of the wave that fired on some under here. And my handicap is pretty straightforward. And you nailed it, I think. I think it's going to take a couple weeks before this offensive coordinator has his optimal strategy together. Not that I love the Navy defense necessarily. I just can see Notre Dame sputtering a bit in terms of putting up some high-flying offense. I think the situational spot and all the travel and all the fanfare, lack of familiarity with the stadium, all of that kind of, to me, points under here. 49.5 is not all that different from 50.5 where I played it, but I think you're probably running out of a little bit of juice here to the under. But mostly the angle is Notre Dame's defense is going to keep this Navy team under for the entirety of the game. I know Navy's offense can do more than we think of when it comes to the military programs when it comes to offense, but this Notre Dame defense looks elite to me. So give me some under, and let's have a fun kickoff.
Okay, under it is. Let's take a look at the odds to make the college football playoff. Georgia, as one might expect, minus 250. And then Michigan and Ohio State behind them, plus 100, plus 115, followed by Alabama, USC, Clemson, Notre Dame further down at plus 750. What do you like in this market, Vaughn?
Yeah, I don't hate a little snack on Notre Dame there at plus 750 because they have a lot to prove with their quarterback. And as Drew said, it'll take a couple weeks for their offense to kick into gear. But once that happens, they're going to be dangerous because of that defense. They got teams like Clemson and Ohio State on the schedule, which is a lot to prove. USC as well, and USC and Ohio State are at home for Notre Dame. And he also gets Wake Forest down the road, his former team. I like Notre Dame here at 750. If you're looking at a team that's a little closer and higher up, I would probably say Alabama is the best bet. Nick Saban, I think he was awoken a little bit with Georgia's back-to-back titles and all the hype around the three-peat, which is definitely true and should be that way for Georgia. But Alabama is a team everyone's kind of sleeping on, in my opinion.
Okay, Alabama plus 150. All right, before we get into some other week 0 bets, a reminder with the NFL season quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your Roto-World Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Get ready for your draft and stay one step ahead of your league during the preseason with updated player rankings, profiles, projections, mock drafts, and more. Go to NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code DRAFT2023 to save 20% at checkout. All right, let's get into some other week 0 games. UMass, New Mexico State, and Ohio at San Diego State. Let's start with the Ohio game. San Diego State there, 2.5-point favorites. The total is 49. Do you like anything in this one, Vaughn?
Yeah, I locked in Ohio plus 3.5. This was 4.5 at some spots. Now it's down to 2.5 because the moment we've been waiting for, boys, Curtis Rourke, he's back. The quarterback for the Bobcats. He was the offensive player of the year in the MAC last year. Defense was a little inconsistent for Ohio, but over the last 8 games, 7 times they've allowed opponents 24 or fewer points, and they return a lot of starters on that side. And speaking of offensive coordinators, how we were talking about we don't like Notre Dame that much, San Diego State brought in Ryan Lindley. He is the all-time leading passer there at San Diego State, but he was also benched at one point there. So San Diego State inconsistent enough on offense. I actually like Ohio here to win this game outright, so I'm going to sprinkle the money line as well. But the +3, +2.5, I think are good bets right now.
Wow, Maction on week 0 of college football. Well, beggars can't be choosers. These are meaningful games. These games matter, even if it's just for college bowl placement. But good look on Ohio. I got to ask you about the game of the week, really. Besides, of course, NBC's own Navy Notre Dame game, and that is UMass, New Mexico State. Really? Now, UMass has been a long-running punchline on Bet the Edge. Eric Froton, of course, was a UMass alumni and made the case 2 years ago that play this best look on the card was the win total over, and all season long we had fun with that because it was like a 1.5 win total, and I don't think they made it. But no, UMass has been kicked around as kind of one of the 115th ranked, 120th ranked college football program going, and yet I flip into every sharp account. I talk to every sharp handicapper I know. They've all got a UMass ticket this week, Vaughn. Is this am I dreaming? Is this a new reality? What is going on with UMass football that every sharp player wants a piece this year?
Listen, they're going to be – I'm not saying they're going to be good. I'm not saying they're going to be great, but they're going to be much, much better. They're getting a lot of players back, 8 players on defense in particular. Almost the entire offensive line is back, but they got tons of Power 5 transfers, including receivers and defensive backs, which are arguably their strongest positions now. So the quarterback will be better. At times last year, they couldn't even throw for 100 yards, and that's why they only had 1 win. But you look at a team that's lost 24 straight games on the road. That is going to end when you look at a team that's constantly improving in little ways. They got competitive last year, but couldn't get over the hump. This year looks like the year that they're going to start winning games. And if you're going to compare them to someone of last year that was a surprise team that still is not a very good team, would be the UConn Huskies. And that's kind of what we're looking for here in UMass, in my opinion. So I did play them at +7. They did lead New Mexico State last year at halftime, 13-10, before they lost that game 23-13. So I do like UMass. I think they can win this game, and they're going to win a road game this year and go over their win total. So we were a year early last year, but NBC is going to be right on the UMass Minutemen this year. Mark my words.
Okay, the UMass bandwagon. Struggling to take Drew's point seriously while he's working from a backdrop of, I'm pretty sure, where Hank Schrader was killed in the final moments of Breaking Bad. That kind of vibe at the moment. Sorry for anyone who hasn't watched Breaking Bad, but you've had a long, long time to catch up on that. All right, before we jump into some college football futures, a reminder that there is no better way to start your day than watching one of the biggest stars in baseball in America's biggest city, Shohei Ohtani and his Angel teammates take on the Mets at Citi Field this Sunday on MLB Leadoff. Catch the action live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. As I say this, my phone is blowing up as we're recording, where Shohei has just been removed from his start 2 innings in, so he may not be there. But Brandon Nimmo will be there for sure. So tune in for that one. I'm going to jump into my favorite college football future in a second, but let's talk about some win total over-unders, Vaughn, including Wisconsin, whose win total is set at 8.5. What's your lean on them?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this Wisconsin team. I'm trying to hold it in, and I know we have Big Ten on NBC and Peacock this year. So if there's one team I'm going to hit the head on the nail all season long, it's the Badgers. They are one of the most experienced teams in the country, bringing back between 15 and 18 starters, depending on how they want to roll with the lineup. But their quarterback situation's finally what they needed. They got Tanner Mordecai, the quarterback from SMU. He actually had over 7,000 passing yards and 76 touchdowns in the past 2 seasons. He's going to be the best Badgers quarterback, in my opinion, since Russell Wilson, and that's been a long, long time. But he's accurate. He has pocket awareness. He's mobile enough to expend plays. And we already know Wisconsin has one thing, and that's defense every single season. But they also got Braylon Allen, who's a top 10 running back, up for plenty of awards. So I love this over. When you just look at their schedule, I mean, it's a cakewalk the last month of the season. They have Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Minnesota. That's a 4-0 stretch to end the season. But they also have a lot of really good home games like Buffalo, Rutgers, Georgia Southern, and Northwestern, Nebraska too at home. So these are all games that are very winnable for Wisconsin, and they have their best teams at home that are ranked against Iowa and Ohio State. So great setup to get 9+ wins. I actually like them to go over 9.5 wins as well. So I'm big on the Badgers.
Okay. Any interest in sprinkling Big Ten championship if you think they're that good this year?
Yeah, I mean, Big Ten West, like their division.
Okay.
I'm not willing to say they're going to beat Ohio State or Michigan just yet. I think it's a two-team race in that respect. But Wisconsin's a team that should be better than Iowa. Iowa's quarterback situation will not be as bad as Spencer Petras was last year. Illinois took a step forward, but they're still not quite there. And when you look at Minnesota, they're a team I think will take a step back, although they've been a 9-win team for the most part. I get them around 7 wins this season. So no need to talk about Nebraska or Purdue in that race. So all Badgers, in my opinion, in the Big Ten West. It's theirs to lose.
Okay, fair enough.
Have you got a lean, Vaughn, between Michigan and Ohio State in the Big Ten?
I like Ohio State's defense a lot. The quarterback situation for Ohio State hasn't been looking very good right now. Kyle McCord's not really – he's winning the quarterback battle, but it's not by much. They're not convinced. He's not convincing them. So, I like Ohio State long-term, and I can't think Michigan's going to be the team that's going to three-peat over Ohio State. That's hard to do.
The next dollar I win on Ohio State is going to be the first. I've been traveling a ton lately and got caught up on my Netflix. So I was watching the Florida Gators series, which if you haven't seen is an absolute trip. But the second episode recaps one of the more painful betting losses of my young betting career, as I had a huge future on Ohio State that year. Ted returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then they promptly lost like 41-14. So it was I was counting my money after that Ted Ginn return touchdown, and then it all went sideways. Jay, you got any memorable betting experiences with Ohio State?
I do, Drew. What was that bloke's name? Ruggles? Was it Ruggles, the kicker? Yeah, I might have had some 30, 35 to 1 or so on Ohio State to win the national championship. But alas, Ruggles had other ideas. Vaughn, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Sorry again about Drew's backdrop. We'll do better next time. But thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon, Vaughn.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys Saturday for our college football show. Don't forget, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Indeed. See you, mate. Okay, last futures market I want to hit, Drew, on college football is the Heisman. Now, I can't take credit for this. Listener actually reached out with this tip, but it makes a lot of sense to me in that Caleb Williams is plus 500 to win the Heisman, but you look at USC's draw, their first 6 games are very, very kind. They're going to be 30-point favorites, and a couple of them, they're double-digit favorites across the board, and that is the type of thing I think that is going to plummet. He was certainly in the mix last year, and obviously, and I think that he's clearly got the pedigree, and I think that plus 500. I've noticed with Caleb Williams that that just in a lot of these award markets across the board, just the favorite is not short enough. Connor McDavid to win the Hart, Jokic to win MVP, Mahomes to win MVP, and now Caleb Williams to win the Heisman at plus 500, I think might be a little bit too big. But what do you think?
I get the concept. I'm going to be looking and I might play this as well because the schedule is right. I was actually looking at maybe laying the 30 points with USC one. Very realistically, they could win that game by 50. This is a program that's trying to build a legacy under Lincoln Riley. They're trying to, solidify some of the best offensive recruits across the country. Great way to do that is to win back-to-back Heismans. I don't think there's really anything that the program ultimately would do to get in the way of him just absolutely showing out from a statistical profile this season. And while they may run into trouble later in the season with some of their tougher matchups in the Pac-12, at least to the start here, you're absolutely right. They should, march up the rankings as some of the other potential championship teams figure things out, play some tougher matchups, and that will shorten his price. But if we play this, I think we got to look over our shoulder all throughout November because it's very, very tough to win back-to-back Heismans. People are going to look for reasons to find a case in some other player. So I think grabbing 5-1 now and then using that as a backstop to swing away on some long shots come Halloween, I think is the strategy. What do you make of that?
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And obviously you're held to a bit higher standard going back to back. But at the same time, I think that kind of stuff does sometimes get overrated because at the end of the day, voters have to vote for someone that they feel comfortable with. And generally, the person you feel most comfortable with is the one who has the best case. And I think that outside of real outliers, and my mind mainly goes to the NBA and thinking about, for instance, Jokic being held to an unfair standard because he basically, he hadn't made the finals and they didn't want to give him 3 in a row before he had made the finals. I think about Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, when he lost to Marcus Smart, where because he got cooked by Terrence Mann in the playoffs and people just don't like Rudy Gobert and they just didn't want to give it to him again when he didn't have a top 5 defense at that point. With that Utah team. And so that kind of stuff, I do think creates a higher and unfair standard. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to be held to that because to win us back-to-back Heisman. So I think that yeah, and look, I'm not the biggest expert on college football, to be candid, but based on all the context that I have and people I respect and their opinions, including your own, Drew, I think that plus 500 is a bit of value. Are there any other college football futures on the board that you like?
Nothing that I've originated myself. There's the buzzy teams. Weirdly, Sam Houston State, very, very hot pick for week 1. Hot pick in the win total market as well at over 3.5. I couldn't really. I assume Sam Houston State is in Houston, but I don't really know. But I think realistically, the points about USC and the points about Caleb Williams are very solid. On top of being the presumptive first overall pick next year, if he even elects to go out, I'm not sure if you saw that story floating around. He may be enjoying his time in LA enough to stick around for one more year. But being the presumptive number 1 pick, it's not a vote that you cast with any doubt. Right? You're not like, man, I'm going to look stupid for voting for K. No, you're voting for the best quarterback in the country who's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL next year. Like, this is not rocket science. Like, he's the best player. If he, if that's a team that's in the mix for, the playoff and, is undefeated as we get into the month of December, then, you basically can start, chiseling the second plaque for him. But the rest of college football to me looks pretty flat. I think the Georgia being presumptive pick for the Final Four is fair. They have they're on the easier side of the SEC, which makes their schedule by default a lot softer than the likes of Alabama's or LSU's. I would expect that in general you're going to have only one SEC representative this year, and the question is do they have the gumption to put in 2 in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Michigan if those 2 play to their expected level this year? And then the 4th one's up for grabs. USC is definitely in the mix. Texas is in the mix. And I think, there's probably an outlier in ACC team, either Clemson or maybe even Miami, that could pop this year and take that 4th spot. So that's just generally the sense that I get looking at the overall landscape. But whereas the last handful of years, there was a really narrow group of teams that were consideration for the playoff, I get the sense that it's a bit broader this year. What is your read?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Obviously, it is a little. Certainly having the 3 teams at the top in terms of the market pricing, and Georgia being minus 250, which locks up 1 spot effectively in the eyes of the market, and then having Michigan and Ohio State, where you expect there'll be 1 out of them. I think it's something to track. I will say that is something as well that, if you are an expert on that, it is relatively easy to beat and project, and it is a pretty vulnerable market. And often the national championship price isn't extrapolated enough from the actual odds to make the playoffs. So it's certainly something to watch as we go. Just the last thing I want to say about the Heisman and Caleb Williams. I think that it's a weird phenomenon, but I think that often looking outside of the obvious favorite is something that content creators do more than actual voters. And I'm not sure that voters actually think about it that much before the season. They just kind of let the season unfold and then react off of that. Whereas, people like us and people who cover these sports, all sports, it's not that cool to just say that you think Patrick Mahomes is going to win MVP and he's the best bet on the board, because it's not very unique. You want to find a way to talk about, guys, Jordan Love, he's might be the next 2019 Lamar Jackson season or whatever. And often, look, the favorite isn't often the best bet in the market, clearly, but I think disproportionately recently there have been a lot of pretty mainstream award markets where the favorite is the best bet in the market. And often there's just not that many people who can win awards like, MVP in various leagues. Like, how many people can win MVP in the NBA? Like, probably a guy like as good as Devin Booker just can't win MVP. Donovan Mitchell just can't win MVP, and I think that that carries across to a lot of sports as well. So anyway,
no, I completely agree with that. The only thing I could say about college football that drives me crazy is that it's week to week reactionary to the degree that makes me want to puke. Like, I cannot believe the degree to which people are so sure that this team is the best this week. They lose one game because they're on the road, and it's just a bad penalty luck, bad field goal miss, you name it, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess they're not very good anymore, and we can't roar this team, and the later in the season you happen to lose, the more consequential it is to the way people view you. Like, it's so antithetical to the way I go about handicapping that it just drives me bonkers. Do you think that there are more than 6 players who realistically could win NFL MVP?
Yes, just because the NFL, it's, I think, one, just the smaller sample of the season, a 17-game season can throw up more randomness than an 82-game NBA season or 162 baseball season. But at the same time, the guys at the top, I mean, to be fair, like Aaron Rodgers came from relatively far back when he won the first of his back-to-back a few years ago. And guys like, Mahomes and Jackson and Matt Ryan were all very long when they won their awards. I do think, and also there is something just about the quarterback position where people can come from nowhere and make really rapid improvements. And I think a lot of that is just because it is very, and we've spoken about this before, but it's very difficult to simulate pressure as the quarterback position in practice. And sometimes guys just get better at that through game reps. And then all of a sudden you have Geno Smith, who's on scrap heap and hasn't really been seen for years, who was, 5 weeks into the season, probably the 4th most deserving candidate for MVP or something. And then you get guys like Brock Purdy who just don't lose once they come into the NFL. So I don't know. I find it pretty beyond Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, those 3, Lamar Jackson. I mean, but it wouldn't completely shock me if someone like Tua Tagovailoa or Dak Prescott, I don't think they're going to win MVP, and I wouldn't be betting them at their current prices. But I mean, do you think it's completely unrealistic that someone like that could win?
I'm starting to feel that way. Just because if you are the dark horse in or around Thanksgiving, all it takes is one stumble in December and people have now dispatched you for one of the guys who was expected, right? Which is what happened last year with Jalen Hurts. And injury was a huge part of that for sure. But if he trots out there and plays the Cowboys in that game and loses, people would have found a reason to pivot to Mahomes. And I think just in general, the dark horse needs to end the season with just a, you almost have to go wire to wire, which is pretty impossible in today's NFL, at least. So I think I'm at 6 that I think could realistically win. Maybe it's 7. But that makes it a potential fun market because you only got to get 6 guys over the balance of the season at their best price. And if you kind of keep track of, the temperature of the market, then I think that becomes a pretty fun exercise.
Yep. All right, so Mahomes, Williams, parlay. What did that get you? Best prices in the market, about 47-1 or so. That seems like a lock, the 47-1 lock. I don't really see how that could possibly go down. No, but I think that should probably be more like 20-1, that type of range. So yeah, that is endorsed by me. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Please rate and subscribe to us if you're listening in podcast form. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself, Jay Croucher, Drew Dinsick, Vaughn Dalzell, and The Desert, we will see you soon.